Welcome back to the Becoming Her podcast. It's been a hot minute since Dr.
Oh
Ann
my
and I have
gosh.
been here. A hot minute. Summer, craziness, chaotic.
Is your life as chaotic? I mean, it's like summer is amazing and fun, but is your life just as chaotic as mine is?
Oh,
Like
dude,
all
I,
the things?
I don't know how I operate on the day to day with the amount of things on my to-do list and constantly juggling things around. And it feels like I should have more time than I do. And then I go to try and maneuver and execute. And I'm like, where did the day go? Because it was 8 a.m. and now it's 5:30 p.m. And I've halfway checked off the 18 things on my to-do list.
Oh, you get halfway. That's
Yeah,
impressive.
halfway. Only because though too, because I am such a mover. It's funny. I have to now before, I don't know, 8 a.m. I have my 10, 12,000 steps in before because if I don't, it's so hot. And
What?
I cannot, the older I get, dude, the older I get, the least the less tolerant I am of the heat.
Yeah.
And I used to complain and moan about the winters because I'm in Utah, so winters here can be pretty brutal. But I have finally come to the conclusion that I would rather be cold than hot.
hmm
And just the older I
hmm
get, the least tolerant I am with it. And so I have to knock out 10 to 12,000 steps before 8 a.m. because it gets hot as balls here. And then that's why I'm able to somewhat accomplish. I said, six of the 18 things, but if it's like in the winter, it'll probably be three because I can go out and I can walk. It's not as miserable. Whereas now I'm kind of just stuck. I'm forced to. Long story short to say, I'm forced to check off more of my things because I can't get up and just walk as much. At least I can do a tiny little loop around and then I'm done. Like I can handle about 3 minutes outside around the block. And then I'm like, all right, I need to go back inside. So it forces me to stay a bit more focused. We did that whole podcast episode on ADHD. Remember when you
Uh-huh.
diagnosed me? I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah. But that kind of somewhat forces me to focus a little bit more.
Yeah, wow, I'm impressed. You must get in quite a number of steps then. I'm like getting them in at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, I like the other day, I don't know how. I mean, I hit 24,000 and I was like, where? But it's because again, I start my day off at I'm out there at 5 a.m., 5:30 to get, 10 to 12. So I guess when you wake up that early and then you're just, and yes, yes, a
Wow.
chunk of steps, but
Wow.
it's definitely a bit more. I definitely get more in the winter or sorry, in the summer than I do in the winter because my front load my days so much. But
That's amazing.
yeah. I guess I
Kudos
guess
to
we'll look at the
you.
pros for it too. We're gonna look at the pros side of it too. But so you guys, I am super hyped about this episode because we're gonna talk about, and I know you love to geek out on this, and this is something that I am so very fascinated about. We're gonna talk about confidence in midlife, but we're not just talking confidence, what you need to do to be confident. Yes, we're going to address that, but we're gonna talk about the actual hormonal brain chemistry shifts that happen as a woman 40 plus and as estrogen declines because this is
hmm
fascinating. It is fascinating. And when you think for so many women, how many times you hear this? It's like, I feel like I'm going crazy. I feel like it's all in my head. I feel, and no, and as Anne's shaking her head, no, it's absolutely it's not, you're not going crazy. And this is, we're talking, like I said, this is neurological. This is rewiring what's going on upstairs. So that's what we're going to dive in today. And I'm going to let you kick this off, Anne, because I have so much to add to what we're going to talk about. And again, it's just the education here is fascinating.
Yes, yes. And I entitled this today The Confidence Myth, Why Confidence Comes
Mm,
After Action. And it's funny that we're talking about menopause kind of as a part of this because the conversation I had earlier this week with someone was that really menopause is our second adolescence. You're welcome, guys.
yeah, right, right. I heard it
So
referenced to as cougar puberty.
yes, like if you
Reverse
feel
puberty.
awkward,
Yeah.
gangly, your body doesn't make any sense anymore and your brain has just like melted into goo. Yes,
Yep.
welcome. You are part of the club.
The over 40 club is so fun.
That's right. So today what we're going to do is we're going to challenge one of the biggest myths in personal development, that confidence comes before action.
Hmm.
We'll explore what psychology and neuroscience actually say about how confidence is built. And what we're going to cover today is why confidence isn't a feeling. It is your brain's prediction based upon past experiences. We're going to talk about Albert Bandura's research on self-efficacy, why action always comes before
Hmm.
confidence, how broken promises erode self-trust, the neuroscience, that's the part that I love geeking out on, the neuroscience of confidence, and practical ways to build lasting confidence by creating evidence that you can trust yourself.
Love it.
So I hope by the end of this episode, you'll understand that confidence isn't something that you wait for. It's not something that some people have and some people don't have. It's something that you actually earn and that everyone can get through consistent action.
Yep. It's built.
So, yes. So confidence is a result and not a requirement before we do things. And I want to preface this with I meet with a lot of people that will talk an awful lot about the concept of confidence without actually realizing it. I hear so many women in my office, mid-age, also young women in my office saying, well, when I figure it out, when I know how to do it perfectly, when I
Mhm.
look the way that I want to look, then
Mhm.
I will date, then I will go after that job, then I'll go back to school. I will ask for the raise or the promotion. And just for record, we tie an awful lot to our weight and appearance as women, and I think that's a part of our culture. But what's really, really challenging about this is that when we tie everything to one aspect of who we are as human beings, then we're not actually working on living our life. And what most people actually believe is that confidence comes before the action and the action is always second.
Mhm.
This keeps people stuck because um well, some of it is related to the psychology of kind of like prediction errors. If I don't believe I'm worthy of something, I'm not going to chase after it, right?
Mhm.
But also, if I don't think I'm capable of something, I'm not going to chase after it. So if I'm really scared of, let's say, public speaking, or I'm really scared of going out into the dating realm, and the one thing that I say is then I won't do it until I lose the weight, I'm not actually creating an environment inside of my brain or my body to actually do the thing that I want to do to get to where I want to go because I'm scared of dating. Does that make
Yep.
sense?
Absolutely does.
So I don't want to lose the weight, ironically, even though I do, because then I'm going to have to challenge myself and do all these things that I've been waiting to do. So we wait to feel ready before doing really important things like starting a business, changing careers, losing weight sometimes.
Yep.
I
I
just need to find the perfect program, the perfect strategy. I just got to go back to keto again. I don't know the number of times I've heard people talk about keto. It worked so well for me. No, it didn't. There's a reason why you're in my office talking about this.
Yeah, if it worked,
It
we
didn't
wouldn't be
work
here
for
right
you.
now. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sometimes doing things like having difficult conversations with the people that you love, beginning therapy. Ironically, people will not begin therapy until they clean up their lives sometimes enough. Isn't that wild?
It's crazy. I always like to say this is something I speak to often, but the belief comes after the evidence. You are
That's
not
right.
always going to believe that you can do something. And it's like it's that messy action, and it's acting even as if you're, acting even when you're scared and you're self-conscious and you don't know. And the outcome is unpredictable. But again, you are never going to be fully 100% ready for anything in life. If
Mm-mm.
you think about it, right? There are so many what ifs out there. And I used to be the queen of the what if. I was the, well, what if this and I do this and what if this and what if it's like, well, what if you fail? But what if you fly? Like what, and then it's the what if game that, absolutely takes over.
And I wanted to ask you about this, Nicole, because you have an amazing story. And even in just the story around weight loss, you went from a typical woman who is overweight, not feeling good about herself, doing all the things with food that we wind up doing with food in secret, right? To being a bodybuilder, to then having your own business, working with other people, working with lots of women, coaching them. And we think about it, most of us and a lot of people will say things like, well, I'm not that person. I'm not the one who lifts the bar. But that was my experience when I went to the
Yep.
gym. I was like, I don't lift heavy stuff. I don't know how to do all that
Yep.
stuff. And what was that process like for you when you first stepped foot in a gym?
Oh my gosh. Overwhelming, all consuming, scary. There was just so many emotions that flooded me, but it got to the point that the pain of staying the same was greater than the fear of change. And I talk about that.
Yep.
I could not stay in the place that I was at. I was miserable. I was having negative, very almost scary thoughts that started to come around or come about. And I could not stay where I was at any longer. So something had to change. And I was burning it at both ends, right? And so there was at one point, and one of my favorite questions to ask, because I know for a lot of women is they'll start something, they do something, and they can't even really tell you why they're doing something. They're doing it
Mm.
because they're blindly following somebody that they heard on the internet, or fasting Felicia down the road. And we have keto Karen who swears, right? And it's like, well, I'm cutting carbs. Why are you cutting carbs? Because Karen told me they're bad. Really? Why are they bad? And we can't really answer those questions. And
Uh-huh.
so, one of my very favorite questions to ask for somebody when they stay stuck, because we want to stay stuck in these patterns, because like it or not, it's comfortable, right? It's the bias, our subconscious. We like to stay there. It is comfortable, whether we like the situation or not. It's that comfortable misery. And so, one of my very favorite questions to ask is like, well, how is that working for you?
Mm.
And when people come out and they're like, well, it's not. And I said, exactly. So why do we continue to do the same thing, expecting a different outcome? And so, yes, it is scary. And there are so many what ifs that play and go through your head. But I have never taken a massive leap that hasn't ultimately ended up working out for me, that didn't have 18,000 hurdles in between the starting
Mhm.
and the ending, right? But finally, along the way, I got to a place where I would have these overwhelming, like, emotional, let's just call them breakdowns, because they were, and like I said, the bazillion hurdles that you come out. But at the end of all of it, it was always this mantra. And I've developed this mantra of everything is figure outable, right? Like, I may not know the answer right now, but it is figure outable. And I know that that sounds like, but that's the way that my brain
Yeah.
comprehends
Yeah.
it. And there is nothing, I've talked to you about this before, Anne, but there's nothing that gets my parts flaring more. There is nothing that gets my anxiety going higher than not understanding something. I hate when I
Uncertainty.
don't know. Uncertainty. That's what it is. I
Yes.
hate when I don't know. And that is when my brain just completely tailspins. That's when, my confidence, takes a nosedive kind of thing. But it had to, it's just like I'm almost started to, I had to, not almost, I had to start to embrace this again. Everything is figure outable, Nicole. You may not know
Hmm.
now, but you have a lot of support around you. We live in an era where information has never been more accessible. So, when you break it down, and I know you and I have had some very much so one-on-one sessions back and forth, and it's always that, what's the worst possible scenario? Let's say, okay, you're having this meltdown,
Hmm.
you're having this moment, but what is the worst possible thing that can happen? And when you break it down, it's like that worst possible thing really isn't that bad, right? Like, I mean, yes, in certain circumstances it can be challenging and be hard, but it's in our heads we want to make it out to be so much more than what it really is. And so I know I kind of like tailspinned that for you, but
Yeah.
it's scary, it's hard, it's uncertain.
Well, and some of what it is that we're afraid of is that, even for me, when I stepped foot in the gym the first time to go to the Smith machine, didn't even understand how it worked. I saw like I'm like looking over my shoulder, like trying to not look but look, you know. Um, and I thought, well, what if everybody knows it's the first time I've done it? What if I look like an
Mhm.
idiot? What if I do it wrong? What if I drop something? What if I like things that everyone do? And what's interesting about this is that when you look at the neuroscience behind how we function as human beings and what our brain is designed to do, our brain is a pattern predicting organ. So it's constantly making predictions about what you're capable based upon the patterns that it sees and the patterns that you've already achieved,
Mhm.
right? And so all of the patterns are based on previous experiences, not wishful thinking, not positive self-talk, previous experience,
Yep.
right? So
100%.
it makes sense the first time that we do something that's completely out of our wheelhouse, we show up and we're freaked out because every novel experience just hijacks the limbic system. Our amygdala fires, we get lots of stress, right? And we go in to do something new. That fear response is the same exact response that we get when we're on a new roller coaster, though.
Mm. Yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. And our brain, like you said, our brain loves predictable. Our brain loves, it's pattern recognition is all that it is.
That's right. It loves comfort. And
Mm-hmm.
this is because our brain is actually designed to conserve energy and avoid unnecessary risk. So, unfamiliar situations naturally will feel uncomfortable to us. But what's challenging about this is, again, confidence develops when repeated experiences prove that you can survive uncertainty.
I love that. There's that Alex Hormozy quote, and he says, confidence comes from stacking undeniable evidence and proof on top of each other that you are who you say you are, right? And that's where
Mhm.
that is built. And there's so many episodes where we've talked about this, that think for a lot of women, we have this misconception in our brain, just like you said, once I lose the weight, then I'll be confident. Once I do, then I'll be confident. And I talk about fitness being that gateway drug, that gateway window that opens up so many areas in your life. And it's not because of, again, the body. Yes, we all have this area where, confidence is wrapped up in our physique. Yes. But fitness opens up so much because what it takes to achieve the body has that trickle down effect, right? Like what it takes to achieve a
Yes,
level of fitness is the commitment. It's the follow through. It is the, even when I don't want to, I do. It is the ability to put short term discomfort over long term goals. It's the ability to, you know, create boundaries within others and within yourself. It's the ability to say no. It's a complete sentence. I don't need to elaborate. That's what fitness is, right? That's that fit body. And then that, what it takes to get fit starts to translate into every other area of your life. But it's because you continue to show up. It's like
that's
even
right.
when it's hard, even when we don't want to, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's not comfortable, even when it's 4 a.m., like talking about earlier, right? Like that is the only time that I can get the bulk of my movement in. And so this is no longer just what you do to chase an outcome, it becomes who you are. And
That's it. Yes,
that's where it gets built, right? And so we think it's the body, and the body's just the byproduct. The body is the cherry on top of the sundae, right? Like, yes, we all want that, but there's so much more that goes into the confidence. And, I was actually did a video, I was talking about this, that when I was overweight, I was so jealous of women who had the body, but it wasn't the body per se that I was jealous of. It was
hmm
that aura and it was that energy that she brought in. She was the one, it was the woman that walked into the door and she completely owned the room. It was that energy that I was jealous of. And I was like,
yes,
it just seemed so far fetched to me and I couldn't understand it. And again, the only way that somebody's able to walk in head high like that is because they're so confident in who they are and where they're going and what they bring because they have built that evidence. It's that reconfirming loop that you're building. Again, I am who I say I am. I keep the commitments and the promises. My follow through is there. This is why those who typically are fit, run very successful businesses, is there's a reason, because the follow through and the commitment is there, and that's what builds that trust upstairs. It's not necessarily the physique that so many want to label it as.
and I want to kind of point out that that's one of the reasons why we find influencers or people in our life that are really fit, and then we want to do everything that they're doing. This is why we want to actually chase the keto Karen. It's not because we want her body. It's we want what we believe her body got her.
Mm,
Happiness, marriage, success, right? Like we want all of those things. Like, yes, we want to look good too, but we want, and so we try to copy and paste the action
mm-hmm.
without mastery and without intention and strategy for our own lives. And a really interesting and important fact about the brain is that the brain does not reward hope, it rewards evidence. This is why positive self-talk ironically doesn't do us any good.
Mm-hmm.
And and I hate to actually come down on anybody in our profession for some of the things that we do, but ironically, when we say things to ourselves like, I can do hard things, I've got this, I'm amazing, I'm wonderful, that sounds lovely. But the problem is that if your brain has no evidence to back it, it is going to give you all of the evidence as you're saying it to the contrary. So it actually works in opposition of what you're trying to do. That's why
Mm.
positive self-talk is so challenging and can actually be damaging for us, because without evidence, our brain is just gonna go, well, remember last week when you didn't do this? Remember all of those moments that you promised yourself that you would wake up and you diet and you didn't?
Yep.
Or go to the gym and you didn't?
Yep. Yep. Action
So
drives results, and that's what your brain's looking for. It's looking for the evidence. It's looking for the action.
yes. So let's talk about self-efficacy, because self-efficacy and self-confidence are actually confused really often. And to talk about self-efficacy, I've talked about Albert Bandura, who is a Canadian American psychologist that was a professor at Stanford, and he did a bunch of research in the 1970s actually around self-efficacy. And what self-efficacy is the belief that you can organize and execute the actions. Nicole, the phrase that you said before is that everything is figure outable. Implied in that is that I'm capable of figuring out stuff.
Yep. 100%.
And I want to discriminate that because for people that underfunction, the message is often, and I hear people say this, everything's figure outable for other people.
Mm, mm, yep.
But I'm not you. I don't have your body. I don't have your genetics.
I don't have your confidence because I don't have your body.
I
So
don't
therefore
have
I
your
can't.
discipline.
Yep.
Must be nice to have money. Must be nice to have this. Must be nice to fill in the blank. And when we're doing that, what we're actually saying is, I'm incapable of getting the results that I want in life.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why this is really important is that Bandura actually believed that self-efficacy, not confidence, is one of the strongest predictors of success. And it actually predicts things like resilience, persistence, performance, our ability to manage stress and cope with emotion, as well as learning. So what he looked at in the I think it was like 7 years that he looked at self-efficacy, is that he actually identified four sources of self-efficacy. And this first one is the most important one because it is the one that we wind up developing confidence from. And it is mastery experiences, successfully overcoming challenges. This is the
Mm,
strongest predictor of confidence. Not easy stuff, hard stuff.
mm.
Because every success tells our brain, I figured it out, I survived, and I can do hard things. Now, what I want to kind of talk about, though, just briefly, and we're going to hit this at the end too, is that there's a difference between overcoming things that are hard for us and going after a goal that's too big.
How do you decipher between the two? Like,
Yep. So let's
yeah.
talk about weight because this is the platform that we're in. Okay. When I go after a goal that's too big, that might look like I want to lose 20 pounds in by the end of this month so I can go to that wedding and look really snatched. Okay. And so we start doing all of these things and we follow a keto diet and we're like, intermittent fasting on top of that and working out 9 minutes a day, and we're going to the sauna and we're doing all these really really destructive things. And 2 weeks in, we decide that we are hungry and angry and that life is not worth living, and we give it all up.
Yep.
Okay. And the problem with this is that when your goals are too big and when you do it unrealistically, and you're actually not engaged in a healthy strategy, but that's actually creating distrust in yourself because that becomes evidence of failure.
Why is our brains? I would love to hear your perspective of this because let's be honest, most women's brains are hardwired that way, right? Like we want the extreme. We
Oh,
want the crazy.
yeah.
We seek it. We seek the, oh, I'm going to drop the 20 pounds. And then it's almost as if, when reality smacks us in the face and very few people drop 20 pounds in a month. Well, I failed because I didn't drop 20 pounds. I only dropped 10 this month. And therefore it's not enough. Our brains are like hardwired to seek the extreme.
Yes. I actually believe that this is an American experience. And if you've watched any of the discussions about Europeans in America for the World Cup, like looking at things like food and drinks and all, we go big or we don't do.
Go big or go home.
That's right. Like, if I'm going to the gas station and I can get like 20 cents more for like the mega gulp, I'm going to get the mega gulp because that's a better value. If I go and I pick a restaurant, I'm going to go to the restaurant, not maybe with the quality food, but the biggest portion size,
Mm,
right? Because we're confusing value with what it is that our body needs. And so we've developed a culture where we believe that people are, and we've kind of done this, overnight successes, that
mhm.
things come easy to certain people, like that you've got to go like big, or you got to get the big house, you got to like go all out when you have weddings. And what sometimes will happen is that we're not exercising healthy boundaries, and that's stuck in our kind of American culture.
Yep.
Well, unless you're going to do it really, like, unless you're going to go all out, don't do it at all.
Yep.
And that actually can backfire for us because that actually prevents us from doing the things that cultivate the change that is lifelong.
Well, social media has only amplified this, right? Like that
Yes,
mentality. It has only made it just so much harder to have any sort of logical stance and just grounding, I feel like, because everything on social media is a highlight reel. Very few people, like you said, the overnight success, or everybody sees the outcome, but they don't see the grinding and what it took to get to said outcome. And something that may look like an overnight success was really 10 years in the making. And then we start to judge ourselves. So why don't I have the thing that that person has, kind of thing? And it has, I mean, social media has just, it's a vicious loop and cycle if you put yourself into the world of comparison within social media like that.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, and that kind of leads us to, ironically, the second point, the second source of self-efficacy, which is vicarious experiences. Watching someone else in a similar age bracket, life bracket, succeed at something expands our own beliefs about what's possible, especially if you relate to them. So if you see them doing something really hard and you're like, oh my gosh, they did that. They're an average person. This is actually sometimes where social media can be beneficial to us.
Yes, for sure.
And what I'd like to say is that I think when it tends to be beneficial is that when we actually get to see people's process.
When it's relatable, you can see yourself within that person, right? It's not the highlight reel. Somebody's relatable within what it actually took.
That's right. When we get to see that they're fit but still struggle and still have moments that they cry or still have moments that they're going out and having desserts or moments that they're like not going to the gym and moments and more moments that they are, like when we get to see the whole process and then we're like, oh, that kind of looks like my life. I think I could do that. I could kind of nail 80%.
Yep. Yep.
Um, what happens is that expands our beliefs for ourselves, watching other people do it. Now, if you are watching someone else who's younger than you or more successful or making more money, and you wind up walking away from that feeling like you're a loser because you're in midlife, and why didn't I start a business? Why is it that I don't look like that? Why do my kids not act like that? Social media then at that point and who you're following is really destructive for developing self-efficacy because you're just tearing yourself down.
Mm, that's powerful. And being able
Okay.
to, I think, distinguish between, I think you made a really great point of, we talked about, yes, there are, you can put yourself within this negative loop of social media, but social media on the flip side of that can also be very, very powerful. Following the right people, submerging yourself within the right content to be able to, utilize
Yes.
that as a stepping stool, to be able to utilize that. I love following people that I feel like I'm the smallest person in the room. I love following people where, and I don't mean smallest as in like, but I mean, there's clearly something that I can take and learn from you. Right. And
Yes.
it doesn't feel as competition, or I don't look at it as you have so much more than I do. And why am I not where you're at? I look at this as like, this is a massive learning opportunity for me. And that
Mm-hmm.
is the power of social media if utilized correctly. But I feel like so many people use it in the opposite way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned as we're talking about other people, and this is something that is near and dear to my heart, in terms of like the third source of self-efficacy. And I say it's near and dear to my heart because one of the things that I have really appreciated as a part of not just being a part of the team, but then also having a coach on the team is verbal encouragement.
Mm.
Um, And I don't care that I am a psychologist and I'm the one who is typically encouraging, and I'm a mom of like 10 kids, and I've got my kids coming to me who are getting discouraged and they need my encouragement. Never, like always being in output mode, not only stresses us out neurologically and psychologically, but it puts us in a position where we're not able to grow as effectively. We have to have a source of input, right? And one of the greatest sources of input is other people's encouragement,
Hmm.
like acknowledging. And I just did this just earlier this week. Maybe you heard about this, but I sent my coach like this
Oh, I
long
did.
rant about like,
Oh,
I
I
sent
heard.
this like, texted this really long rant at like 5 a.m. about like, I tried to figure it out. I wanted to go for an extra long ride, a second extra long ride. And I was like, I tried to go really slow so I wouldn't have lots of inflammation, lots of soreness. And what I've discovered is that like everything that you said was right. And I'm really angry about it. And she was like, okay, well, I don't need to say anything because you figured it out. But she's like, you got it. It's fine. Just take a day break. It's not a big deal. And I'm intelligent. I technically know this intellectually, but emotionally, what we need as human beings is that aspect of co regulation. We need other people's belief in ourselves when times get tough. and kind of like, every now and then we need a moment, just like we do sometimes with our kids, just like we do with our friends. We're kind of like shake them a little bit. Girl, it's okay. It's all right. It's gonna be all right.
And that's the power of coaching. And I don't think as many people, I wish more people understood the power of having somebody in your corner that A, first and foremost, obviously has your best interest at heart, but B, can see the 10,000-foot view, because it's when it's your own journey, there's an
Oh,
emotional attachment to that, and you miss the forest for the trees, right? And so the
yes.
logical thing is not logical in your own journey. Like you and I have had this conversation, and you are, I mean, I've come to you for things, you've come to me for things, and I'm like, I'm going to stick my coaching hat here on, Anne, right? Like this is, and when it's your own journey, it's really, really hard to see that at times. Well, not at times, quite often, because there is that emotional attachment to it.
Yes.
And so when you have somebody on the outside that can bring logic to a very emotional situation that allows you to see things from a perspective that ultimately has, because for a lot of times we're thinking 5 minutes in front of us, we're not thinking long term or end goal, we're thinking for what we're feeling in the moment, and it's uncomfortable and it's hard, and in the moment I miss my writing because Anne has goals right now. Girlfriend's trying to, she's trying to grow an ass that stops traffic. She has some goals right now. And we talked about the trade-off for your goals. It doesn't mean that you are going to give up writing for the rest of your life, but there is a
Right.
trade-off when you have a specific goal.
Yep.
And the trade off right now for Anne is she's going to have to pull some of her writing back. If the goal is to grow glutes, will that be this way forever? And that was very much so the conversation. But in the moment, in the moment, you're like, I want to ride. In the moment, this is what feels good. In the moment, this is what I really like. And it's like, cool. If you want to love that, but what's the end goal? Right. Like, and we miss that because,
Uh-huh.
again, the emotional attachment to it. So when you have somebody that can come in and bring logic to a situation like that, again, upstairs, and this becomes, and we're going to speak to this as estrogen starts to decline. We don't have the same way of regulating our emotions as we used to. This is why things become
Oh
so
yeah.
much more dramatic than they ever were, 15 years ago. This is why your husband chewing, you just like, oh,
Oh,
just
that
little
happened to me
things that
just earlier
never, yeah,
today.
that never used to even phase you. But in,
Yep.
in midlife, this is, again, it is brain chemistry. It's wired upstairs. And that is the power of having, again, a coach. And even if it's not a coach, just somebody from the outside that's able to come in and bring that perspective and that value.
That's right. That's right. And what's really what I want to kind of note here is that encouragement alone doesn't create
Mhm.
confidence, because confidence only grows when encouragement is followed by action. So if someone encourages in you and you go, "Oh yeah, that's nice. I'll do that next week," or whatever, like maybe I'll do a part of that. And maybe that is me every now and then. That's actually not going to create the mastery. That's not going to give you any confidence. It feels great,
Mhm.
but unless you're willing to follow up with the hard stuff, and I know that this probably sounds silly that my hard was giving up my longer rides, but I have been in many seasons of my life where I've had to give up food. I've had to challenge myself with food. I've had to do things that I never thought that not only did I not believe that I was capable of, but also didn't like really at one point I didn't think I was capable of eating food in a normal way, like at all. Like my food was so disordered and so messed up. I thought there is no way on this planet I will ever be able to eat sugar again. I'll ever be able to eat bread again. Like I thought I'd blown it.
Mhm.
Um, and and what's really interesting about that is that then when now I have people in my office that are saying the same things, I'm like, oh no, you got it. You got it. I know the plan. I know the strategy. You just like, yep. And then they mess up and they're like, no, 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 it's okay. We just got to go back to it. Like, let's wash, rinse, repeat, and we're gonna do it until we figure it out.
And normalizing those fumbles, right? Because when we're
Yes.
in the thick of it, we feel like that one breakdown, that one mistake, that one thing that we shouldn't have done is kind of completely, our brain wants to tell us it's going to derail every amount of effort and energy that we've put into the thing, and now it's completely over with. And it's that all or nothing mentality that we're wired with, this all or
Yes.
nothing mentality that produces the all or nothing results. And again, that is the power of not just coaching, but understanding and normalizing, like you said, the fumbles, normalizing the falls, normalizing the hard, normalizing the detours, the hiccups. They're going to happen. And I don't care if this is in your health and fitness journey. I don't care if this is in your career. I mean, there is not a single thing that I've accomplished in my life that has not come with 18 different pivots and hurdles and challenges I've had to overcome, where they have not been, like you said in the very beginning, massive opportunity for growth and learning. And it's like when
Yep.
something big happens that smacked me in my face, it's like, first and foremost, like, oh, I'm never doing that again, right? Like that's just like one of the biggest teachers. That's not going to happen again. But ultimately has been, in the moment, it feels all consuming. In the moment, it feels like you may never recover from it. In the moment, it feels like it's the worst possible thing that could happen. And I've had so many specifically with business, so many just two by
Oh my
fours to
goodness.
my head, right? And
Yes.
I've had moments where I've just been in tears with my husband. I'm closing doors, right? My parts come out and it's just like, I can't keep doing this. And they've been the biggest blessing and opportunity now that I'm where, again, that I've, but in the moment, like I couldn't see that in the moment. And so being able to normalize that is a big piece of this, because we look, again, it's the social media, it's a highlight reel, it's the person that achieved the thing that looked like they ultimately were able to do it without any sort of hiccups or challenges. And why did this person here? And why am I struggling so much? And that just is not, it's not reality at all. But again, our brain wants the evidence, like you said, in that the evidence is going to come from these challenges and these hiccups and the
That's
action
right.
that comes through working through those. But we're just hardwired to believe that, these overnight success stories with social media is, that should be the norm, and that is the norm, and it's just not the reality.
That's right. And I want to add something to what you were saying in terms of the mess ups and the mistakes and the relapses, or like, oh, I'm back to doing it again. One of the number one thing that I hear from people often is I'm back at day one. No, you're not.
No.
No, you're not. That 2 months that you had, that 2 weeks that you had, that 2 hours that you had, you still have that 2 hours. You still have that 2 weeks, that 2 months, that 2 years. You didn't lose it. You're not back at square one. You had a moment. It is still stuck in history as, yep, I had this momentum for 2 weeks. Then I went back to my default setting and I didn't get off the couch for a week. Okay. All right, but you didn't lose that 2 weeks. Now, what are we going to do now that we realized? Are we going to have another 2 weeks? Are we going to expand this? That's what it's about.
Yep. That is
It's
absolutely.
not about being perfect. It's about constantly showing up and doing it again.
Yep. And I
That's
think
what determines it.
And I think there's power here. I actually had a call where we talked about this exact thing yesterday. We had a team call, and we talked about how, for a lot of women, just the ability to become aware is huge, right? Because I mean, aware of what's really keeping you stuck. Let's just tie it into your health and fitness journey. I promise you, this is so much more than the cookie and the bonbons and the donuts.
Yes,
There is so much more underneath this that's driving where you're currently at. Becoming aware of those things is crucial. Being able to sit with the hard things, being able to really ask that powerful question, why? Like, I am overweight, but why am I overweight? Well, I promise you, it's not just the donuts and the bonbon. Like, if we dig deeper, there's a lot of things that are built into this, right? And so becoming
mhm,
aware is so crucial. But I think for a lot of women, that's where it can stop, right? Because when you become aware, your brain's like, oh, I figured it out. I know why. But then
mhm,
to Anne's, to circle all back, it is the only way that we are able to awareness, great, but then it's the action to execute that your brain needs to overcome. So we can be aware all day long. You can be aware that your relationship with food is shit. You can be aware that, you're struggling with X, Y, and Z, but what now, how long are you going to stay aware before you start creating a plan to tackle it?
that's
Because
right.
we need
That's right.
action. Action drives results. And so I think and I'd love for you to speak to this, Anne, because I think the awareness tells our brain something almost as if we figured it out, and we want to
Mhm.
stop there because that's what's comfortable. It's like, oh, well, now I'm aware. And then it's, well, to actually work through, I always say the only way out is through, kind of thing. So to actually work through all of this, that's going to require me to change habits and patterns and beliefs. That's going to require me to actually do something different. We want a different outcome. We need different inputs. But it's almost as if our brain saying, well, now I understand why, that becomes enough. And it's like wants a hard stop there, opposed to doing the hard thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the things that you kind of launched us right into accidentally, probably on purpose because you're really gifted, is the fourth source of self-efficacy, which is emotion regulation. You talk about
Mm,
food, it's not about the food, it's not about this, right? Okay, so the first three were mastery experiences, vicarious experiences, verbal encouragement. Last one is emotional regulation. because it's really hard for us to feel confident about ourselves if we don't like how we're emotionally responding to things.
Mm.
But specifically how we respond to anxiety. So this idea that you were talking about in terms of the prefrontal cortex, once it's in our prefrontal cortex, that's lovely. We now have the awareness. And the prefrontal cortex is the problem solving part of the brain, which is fantastic. But now, if I don't equate that to a strategy, if all I say, and I hear people say this all the time, they come to me and they're like, okay, I'm eating the bonbons every night and drinking a glass of wine or a bottle, and I know I need to get up off the couch, but I just keep down, and I realize that it's because I need to cope better, and it's because I'm really tired when I come home from work, and I don't know how to like unwind. Oh, that's great awareness.
Hmm.
Where's your strategy?
Yep.
And if your strategy is, well, I need to not eat the bonbons and drink the wine, that's not a strategy.
That's
That's a
an hopeful
goal.
outcome. It's a goal. Yeah.
That's a goal, but
Yeah.
that was no strategy. Right. And we have to learn that discomfort is not danger, just like anxiety is not
Mhm.
danger. Right. And ironically, that the physiological responses on the roller coaster ride, the heart racing, the sweating palms, the like, you're just like your temperature goes up, you might feel a little bit nauseous. That's anxiety no matter what. It's also excitement.
Mhm.
It depends on how we're packaging it.
Oof.
Right? So if I'm going up that roller coaster saying I'm going to my death, all the screws are going to come loose and I'm going to die on this thing, like you're going to have a very different experience than, oh my gosh, we're going to get to the top and then we're going to drop and then it's going to
Yeah.
be a great ride.
Yeah.
Right? So if we look at everything, we look at even the prospect of managing weight, of trying to master it as something that is too hard for me to accomplish. I can't possibly do this. Look at the 40 years before this that I didn't accomplish it.
Mm. And what's
Right?
going to happen too is that, and if you guys have not, sorry to interrupt, but I think this is a great segue. If you guys have not listened to our part series that we had, I mean, that part series, it was a three part series. And it was so very powerful. But this is when the awareness comes out, your parts are coming in hot and they want to keep you safe, right? So your
Oh yeah.
parts are coming out saying, okay, I'm aware, but if we tackle this, but what if I fail again? But what if I try and it doesn't happen? And these parts are going to come in and they're going to try and keep you exactly where you're at. And so really truly
Stuck.
understanding that it's a protection mechanism. That's all that
Yeah.
it is. That's what your brain is hardwired for safety. It wants to keep you safe. And so again, the awareness is crucial, but like you said, the strategy. Now, what is the strategy? Not the hopeful outcome. What's the actual strategy? And I always say it's a dimmer switch. It's not a light switch. My coach used to tell me that, and there's so much power to that. You're not going to just flip the switch, and all of a sudden now you have no more emotional attachment to food and it doesn't control you and all of these things just go away. There's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be, but you got to have a hand on it. You actually have to have a hand to actually be able to move the dimmer. And for a
Mm-hmm.
lot of us, we want to be hands off and say, well, oh, their awareness is there. But again, what's the strategy, as Anne said, to get to what the outcome is, the desired outcome?
That's right. And a part of that emotional regulation piece is that we have to become comfortable with experiencing discomfort.
Mm, yes, we do. And
And
most flounder. They completely flounder the second something feels hard or challenging. And I used to be that girl. I used to be that girl. And I'm not saying I still don't have those moments, but it is one of those things where in being aware that it's not like, because automatically your brain's going to go to, I can't, instead of, okay, this is a part coming, trying to protect me. And now I can look at it from a different angle. But a lot of people, they flounder because they instead of embracing what that discomfort is telling us and asking questions as to why it's making me uncomfortable, it's like, oh, well, it's a hard stop the second it becomes hard.
that's right. And ironically, most of us actually do know how to experience discomfort because we live in it. We marinate in it for years, if not decades of our life, in bodies that we don't like, in relationships we don't
Mm,
like, in jobs that we hate, in a career path that we never wanted to take, but we did it for someone else or for our parents, right? So it's going to be hard no matter what we do. It's either going to be hard because it's novel and it's new and you might fail it, or it's going to be hard because it's comfortable, but it's miserable and you're stuck.
so very true. So very
But
true.
you're the one who gets to choose which hard you get to pick.
Yep.
And so confidence is built only through repeated experiences, not repeated affirmations.
Mm. And really being able to break that down too, because I think if people think, well, I say and I talk and I tell, and your language is everything. And I think there's a lot of power to understanding the way that you talk to yourself matters, and it matters a lot because again, if you think something for long enough, you will find a way to bring it to fruition, right? So if
Yep,
you think for long enough that you're a POS who doesn't deserve and isn't worthy and can't do, your brain will find a way to make that come to fruition. But again,
that's
the
right.
way that you talk about, like Anne said, yes, the positive. And I always say again, the belief comes after the evidence, and the power of manifestation for so many people is it's not the hums and the ams and the candles and the senses, it's the acting as if.
That's
And
right.
that is the biggest piece that I think misses at first, that's missed for so many, is that I want whatever that said outcome is. And coaching, I love to talk about this. It's like, well, what would version 2.0 of you do? The version that has absolutely everything that you want in this situation right now, not the version, not what what's comfortable. What would version 2.0 of you do? And
Mhm.
acting as if. So it's that talk of this is, and speaking to yourself and making sure that your brain, is going after the thing, but it's also the action to then execute.
Well, and I want you to hear the difference between how we can talk to ourselves. There's a difference between um, I can't do that, and I don't know how to do that yet.
Huge, huge, huge. You just nailed it. Huge.
And did you hear how different that sounds for who I am as a person, right? I can't do that. That shuts the door. Your prefrontal cortex says, "Yep, that's fine. Not going to do that." That now becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I
Hmm.
can't do it means I won't do it, means I'm not going to create a strategy. I'm not going to problem solve it. And when we add things to it, well, I don't have the right genetics. I don't have the right body type. My metabolism's in the tank. Well, I have PCOS. I've got this long standing history of whatever, fill in the blank. I've been doing it for too long. I'm married to someone who also eats like trash. Okay, those are great excuses
Yep. Yep.
to stay stuck,
Yep.
but
And
is
you
that going
just
to make you happy?
exactly and reconfirm what you've been telling your brain. And it's just like you just nailed it because there's so much power to, well, I'm 30 pounds overweight because I have this super stressful job and I don't have time versus I'm 30 pounds overweight because I don't understand how to prioritize my needs.
Oh, there you go.
Right? Like it just, I mean, it hit
That's it.
very, very
That's that's
differently.
it. We're done.
Close the show. We're gonna end there.
Yes. So let's talk about the nerdy part. I love the nerdy part of the
Let's
brain.
talk the nerdy part.
And because I think it's fascinating, and you can just, silence me or turn down the volume if you don't want to hear this part. But okay, so your brain learns through evidence. Let's talk about the structural changes and what the brain is actually doing when we create moments of evidence, of mastery. And this is because the brain is constantly asking questions like, have I done this before? What happened last time I did this? Is this safe? Can I survive this? It answers those questions only using stored experiences. This is why so many freaking diets fail, right? Because we
Mhm.
go and we're like, and we like, how many of us, I don't know about you, but like, how many, honestly, just be honest with yourself for a moment. How many times did you start a new diet going, I got this, but in the back of your head, you're like the other 40 times?
That was my life for 33 years. 33 years.
Yeah. So all stored experiences, right? Which is why we need a lot of times coaches, or we need somebody who we know, we have seen, this is that vicarious experience. Boy, I can see images of where you started and where you're at now. I believe you. I believe that I can do this process. I believe that I can just do the next step. So let's talk about what changes and what changes in the brain. So the hippocampus is the place in our brain that stores memories. It retrieves previous experiences when facing new challenges, and all of this is to help you survive new challenges. So, successful memories become evidence that influence our future decisions and also our ability to navigate future hardships. Now, the prefrontal cortex, this thinking part of the brain that I talk about often, it is responsible for planning, decision making, problem solving, and emotional regulation. It helps override fear when choosing intentional action. Notice I said intentional. Okay. And then the third part of the brain that's responsible is the amygdala. And this is the part of the brain, this is kind of the feelings generator, is the word that I give for it. It detects potential threats, it responds to uncertainty, it activates when there's no physical danger. So things like public speaking, interviews, conflict, showing up at the gym and lifting heavy stuff. But any type of change, anything new that we're doing activates the amygdala because it's unfamiliar. And the reason why this is important is that any single time that we do something that is unfamiliar for us or creates uncertainty, it activates the amygdala, the part of the brain that is responsible for kind of like hijacking the whole brain. It's like, okay, threat, this is really, really bad. Someone might die. But
Right.
it isn't actually trying to sabotage you, it's trying to protect you. And one of the really important parts of that is that if we look at that as evidence that we shouldn't be doing this, or when, and this is the discomfort part and the psychology behind the discomfort of it, if we look at that and we say, I'm really anxious, this probably means I shouldn't be doing this, or it probably means that it's not meant for me, or it probably means that I'm not capable of this. You're going to have a very different outcome if you follow that versus, oh my gosh, I'm anxious because this is new and I'm not sure how this is going to go, but I'm going to try it.
And what's the worst thing that could happen? I think just really bringing it back to that. That's just always been so powerful to me. It's like, okay, let's say I jump in for both feet with both feet and I completely flounder and I drown. And, but what is the, drown in, all the what ifs, what is the worst thing that can come from this if I tried and it doesn't happen? And I think
Mm-hmm.
really bringing, for me, that was such a powerful reframe because it's like, it's scary. It's really scary to jump in and to not know and to have all these things. But what is the worst possible thing that could happen if I tried and this fails? And usually that worst possible thing really isn't that bad. It really just isn't, right? So bringing it back down to, I try, what's the worst possible thing? Well, this doesn't work either, right? Like it's like, what's the worst possible thing of trying? Like what is the worst possible thing that could happen from this? And I think really grounding it like that is, for me at least, was something that was very powerful because I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to blow things up in my head. I wanted to make it out to be if this fails and you know, everybody's dying and it's just the world's ending. And I know that sounds dramatic, but in my head, in my parts were coming out, and that's what it felt like. It felt like if I tried this thing and it fails, then ultimately I'm a failure because it didn't work.
Yep.
And, I have completely ruined everything. And as you said, I start right back to square one. And that's how I would go into situations. And my nervous system was already clear up here going into. So not going into it even at that point with even a clear head because
Yep.
I'm so I'm so hyper fixated on the worst possible thing that could happen instead of opening up the window and saying, okay, yes, but what could come from this? And that is, I just think, a really powerful reframe.
That's right. So what happens when you stay with the challenge? Instead of quitting, ironically, what happens is that prefrontal cortex remains engaged throughout the hard challenge. And because it remains engaged, you begin solving problems. Your brain gathers new information and you realize the situation wasn't nearly as dangerous as you predicted.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was lifting, and I don't know why this came to me, so it's hysterical. But the first time that, or the one of the first times that I was lifting, I was squatting. I actually farted while squatting, and
Another one there,
that was
sis.
kind of like that wasn't even a list of things that I was actually worried about. But it was kind of like, oh, I'm gonna look like a fool. And sure enough, a few people looked over at me. I was like, well, people fart. It's fine.
It happens.
Like,
And they're
it
all
is what
looking at you
it
and
is.
they're going, yeah, been there, done that. Yeah, that's absolutely been, I mean, sometimes I've peed my pants. Like I can't go to the
Uh-huh.
gym with anything but black leggings because your
That's
girl
right.
pees her pants after kids. It's just what it is.
So, and part of the reason I'm sharing that is because sometimes the things that we're most afraid of, they do happen or they do happen to other people and you survive them and you
Yeah.
wind up hopefully laughing about it later, maybe laughing about it hopefully with somebody else that's right next to you that overheard it,
Yep.
which was true story what happened. Um, and what's really cool about that is that when we expose ourselves to these new experiences and we continue to persist, our brain learns success, right? It learns because each experience says, okay, I've survived this before. I go into something heavy and I fart again. I mean, it's happened,
It's happened.
right?
Would have been
And
the
the
first time.
reason that's right. The reason why that's so powerful is that the amygdala will gradually decrease its response to similar situations. So that thing that was hard for you the first time, the first 10 times, the first 20 times, eventually what happens is that you no longer become afraid of it because you're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Again, the whole action piece. It's almost as if anything that you want out of life comes from the action of execution.
That's right.
It's almost as if anything you've ever wanted. And I think when it comes to our bodies specifically, when it comes to our health and fitness goals, we have this unrealistic idea when it comes to our bodies that doesn't exist in any other area of our life. We're not nearly as unrealistic about a lot of things as we are when it comes to our body. It's like I always say, like Ann said, you tried something, it doesn't work, or it doesn't, the diet didn't go as planned, or you learn. And I always say, it would be like your child coming home and saying, Mom, I got a D on my math test. And you're like, oh, well, you might as well drop out. You're done. School's over with, right? Like completely. But that's what we tend to do specifically when it comes to our bodies and our health and fitness,
Yes.
is that we have this just unrealistic idea of how it should or should not happen. This unrealistic mentality of how fast and ideally, what the outcome is going to be, but we don't take into account, we don't have any sort of we're not really, we know that it took us longer than 6 months to gain 40 pounds. We know
Mm-hmm.
that it took us longer than, I say 6 months, 6 weeks, right? But then we have this unrealistic mentality that it should take us 6 to 8 weeks to drop 40 pounds.
Yep.
But we know it took us, I mean, how long did it take you to put on that 40 pounds? It's probably a couple of years to put on 40 pounds. But yet I failed because I didn't lose it in 8 weeks. And I only lost 15 pounds.
Yes.
Only?
Yes.
Really? Only? Only? And that is how we tackle things. And that is how, and then therefore, it's just, again, you're just telling your brain that it's never enough. You're telling yourself that it doesn't matter what I do, what I execute, what do I accomplish. The 15 pounds, instead of saying, own that and go, holy shit, I just dropped 15 pounds this last 8 weeks. I had 40, now I have 25 to go. Like I am a badass. I own, like, holy shit, this is everything I've been able to achieve. It's like, oh, I only dropped 15 pounds.
Yep.
That's how we
Yep.
tackle it.
Well, and what I want to offer as a major takeaway from this is that the brain is always learning, right? You are always training your brain, no matter what you do. I don't care if you've done the same thing over and over and over again for the last 5, 10, 20 years. Doesn't matter. Your brain is constantly learning. It's constantly being trained. Courage trains the brain.
Mm,
Avoidance trains fear.
mm,
And so if you have been stuck in avoidance mode for the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years because the last 20 diets didn't work, so I'm not going to do it again, you're actually teaching your brain something about itself and something about you.
mm-hmm. 100%. And it comes down to, all of that comes down to, as Anne said, the action, but it comes down to the lack of trust within yourself.
That's right. That's right. And one of the really interesting aspects of the brain, again, I know I probably nerd about this too much, but the brain is a muscle. Very much like every muscle in your body needs to be moved in order to get bigger, to stay strong, to be consistent, right? We have to actually use it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why it's a muscle is a concept known as neuroplasticity. And what neuroplasticity means is that the brain is changing its literal structure on repeated experiences. So every repetition strengthens specific neural pathways. And that's because neurons actually communicate through electrical signals. So what happens is that when neurons fire together, they wire together. That's the common experience. But when I keep doing X and I get Y as a result, or I keep showing up and I keep lifting, even though I'm not really sure how to do it, or I keep doing my steps, even though I don't see the weight coming off, and I keep doing the meal plan, you're actually training your brain. You're growing and changing the structure of the brain. And now it becomes more efficient and easier to do. So this
Mm-hmm.
thing that used to hijack the amygdala, this thing that you thought, I'm going to fail this too, because you're consistently doing it and you're committed to the process of it, you're actually changing the actual structure of your brain.
Yep. And this is why you continue to, we had a call talking about this a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to send this podcast to everybody on the team. They need to listen to this, the power of just so many things that we've been recapping, but the goalposts always moves. And that is the part too, is like, I think one of the biggest things is getting to a place where you become complacent. And I talk about this often. It's like, okay, the goalpost will, and as humans, we continue to move the goalpost to continue to challenge. Like you said, it's a muscle, like the brain, it's a muscle. And so we lost 25 pounds. And I'm not saying don't own that. I'm not saying don't absolutely own the 25 pounds. Own the fact that, you were able to check this off your list. And, we hear it often. It's like, I'm smaller than I was on my wedding day. All of these boxes that we were able to check. It's like, yes, I love that. And now it's like what you thought you wanted, it opens doors to so much more for you. And that goalpost moves and you continue to put yourself in situations and, things that feel uncomfortable and challenging yourself in ways that you couldn't even fathom before you dropped the 25 pounds. Now you've, again, the evidence, you've stacked that as we just, again, bringing this full circle, you showed yourself what you're truly capable of doing. And now it's like, okay, we've lost 25 pounds. And I'm not saying that goal is, oh, I need to drop another 10 or 15. Now we have goals that are performance based. Now we have
Mhm.
goals that come body composition based. We have goals that you never even thought about coming in because you were so hyper fixated on the number or a jean size. And that's why I say where fitness is that gateway drug. It is that gateway opening because what happens when you reconfirm what you're truly capable of and you have now stacked undeniable evidence that you can follow through, that you can commit, that you can execute, and we've lost the 25 pounds. Now what's that big thing, that next big thing, that next stretch goal that you thought was so impossible? Because now we've just proved this. Now we're going for here. Now we're moving for
That's
this
right.
thing, right? And I
That's right.
love challenging myself in this area because like I said, my big thing when I lost the weight was never, yes, I wanted the body. Don't get me wrong, absolutely. But I wanted the energy. I wanted the aura. I wanted to be the girl that walked into the room. I was so envious of that. And now I am constantly finding ways that allow me to execute that I never in a million years talk about. I'm looking at public speaking gigs. I'm looking at things that in a bazillion years, I never would have even entertained. Like you public speaking, I can't even look up and like I'm looking at my feet when people are talking to me. What do you mean stepping on a stage and talking in front? No way. But
Yeah.
I push myself into rooms where, like I said, I love being the smallest person in the room because that shows me like there's so much opportunity that way, meaning like there's that growth piece of it. And that is the evolution of what losing 100 pounds has given me, right? It's so much more than just I lost the weight. It is just now transformed, as Anne said, into now this business and this, and I hate to even call it, because it's so much more than that. It's the community, it's this team, it's what we do. It's just like we're changing lives. And if you would have told me 10 years ago that I would be where I'm at right now, I would have laughed in your face. I couldn't even walk into a room without having my like head down, like looking at the floor. And that's the power of the follow through. That's the power of the action. That's the power of exactly everything that you just said.
And that's confidence and that's rooted in
Mhm.
self-efficacy, right? I
Yep.
believe I can do it because I've done hard things. Actually mastered hard things. I keep showing up to do hard things, and therefore I'm someone who can do it.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
and this is kind of like my way of also kind of acknowledging that this is much more about the process that you're engaged in than the end goal. Yes, the goals are beautiful and wonderful, and we need a destination to go to, but the process by which you show up every single day is how you achieve this.
Yeah.
That ability to show up every single day and do something that's hard,
Yep.
and that practice is what is changing the brain. It
It
is
is.
changing the structure of the brain.
Yeah. You start to chase processes and behaviors. It's not how do I lose 30 pounds? It's how do I become the person that loses 30 pounds? And they're two widely different realities and two widely different outcomes.
Yes, yes. And a part of the, the brain being a pattern machine is that dopamine, one of the signals that I like talking about often, is a prediction signal. It's not a reward signal. And dopamine gets released every single time that you complete something that's hard. Every single time that you complete a task, you load the dishes in the dishwasher, dopamine. You do the laundry, dopamine. You go and get your workout in, dopamine. So it's not about it's really I this is it's really not about the goal. Like yes, we want to get there, but more dopamine in the brain, healthier structures, but also more rewards and more automation. And the real glow up for any of us is when we automate a healthy lifestyle. When we
Mm.
naturally fall into these patterns and rhythm where we're picking the fruit instead of the candy for a snack. And nothing against candy. I like candy. I'll eat candy on a regular basis. Not trying to demonize it. But we start doing more of the healthy process related stuff. And the more that we do it, the more automatic it is and the
Yep.
easier it is for us to do it.
And you don't even think about it. You just, you don't have to think about hitting a protein goal. It just happens because that's who you are. You don't have to think about, you know, working out. It's like you put it into your schedule and you figure it because that's just who you are. This is how it happens. And even when lives and something happens, you find a way because again, that becomes the automation. That's the foundational piece of all of this, which is so powerful. I want to speak to before we wrap all of this up, Anne, and I know we have some key takeaways here, but I want to speak to the as we talked about earlier, when I opened up the podcast, as hormones start to decline. And as you know, you're
Oh, yeah.
talking about dopamine, we're talking about serotonin, we're talking about the receptors in our brain, and how as estrogen it's your neurochemistry. It is literally your hardwiring upstairs. And when estrogen starts to decline, that is why things in midlife feel harder. That is why things in, if you are the type A career driven, you used to always just check boxes off the list and it felt effortless. And it was almost as if like, it's like you didn't even have to think about it. That's why now things are how much more challenging does it feel to check off those boxes? And it is upstairs as estrogen's declining. It is
It's
rewiring how
real.
our brain processes. It is rewiring how we handle. It is rewiring the way of which we think and how we operate. And the understanding of what is going on instead of I know for a fact before, when I first started feeling the effects of this is you want to blame yourself. Like you're like, oh, well, there's something wrong with me. What's going on? I've never been this way. This has never been a thing. And when you understand what's happening, but also understand that there's a way to combat all of this. Like it doesn't have to be this way. We speak to estrogen and obviously replenishing your estrogen, replenishing her progesterone is huge here because I mean, Anne was talking about she's going through some, hurdles with her sleep right now. And,
Mhm.
just how the lack of sleep impacts every area of
Oh,
your life. And will absolutely, if your brain's running off of 4 hours of sleep, do you think your brain's thinking clearly?
no, it's not.
Absolutely not. It's definitely not Anne's like, I know I'm functioning right now in about 4 hours of sleep. She's one eye open. But I want to first and foremost normalize this and say just because something is common doesn't mean that that's what you need to accept as your reality. And I talk about this
Mhm.
often, but really, truly, hopefully, this is just another reason as to why, as women, that you need to stay in front of this and the advocacy piece when it comes to hormone optimization, when it comes to really, truly advocating for yourself and not accepting these very common well, this is just what aging is because it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to, you don't have, the brain fog doesn't have to stay that thick. The,
That's right.
I have something on the tip of my tongue and it's upstairs, but I can't spit it out. The pure exhaustion and the, almost just inadequacy that you feel. Let's just label it for what it is. It feels very inadequate, and you feel, it starts to get attached to your worth and your, just identity, even. And so, really speaking to hopefully those who are hearing this saying, yes, yes, I'm experiencing this. Yes, yes, understanding that there is help and that there is a way to be able to work through all of this. And it's not you going crazy. It is quite literally, it is upstairs, and it rewires that piece of it.
Well, and as I mentioned before, I think menopause, perimenopause, that is our second adolescence. The cool part is that you're older now, you're more mature. Many of us, by the time we hit this place, we stop people pleasing to the significant extent that we did when we were younger. We start really prioritizing ourselves. This is an opportunity to do it over again and to do it better.
Yep.
And please do not buy the lies. I do not care who tells you. I don't care how trustworthy the source is. Please do not buy the lie that it has to be like this just simply because you're older.
Yep. Yes.
You are
Amen.
you are tanking your own opportunity.
Amen.
So, on that note, let's talk about practical ways to build confidence.
Let's do it.
So, first way is that we're going to build evidence, not ego. And we're going to build it small, not big. This goes to the difference between our goals versus the process, right? So daily habits, keep your promises small to yourself. Doing things that are hard for you. Like, I don't know about you, but Nicole, there are some days, especially when I'm in the office, my day is already planned out for me. I'm booked from 8 a.m. all the way to 5 p.m. I got like no wiggle room. I'm not fitting anything else in,
Yep.
right? So my goals are around making sure I get my workout in, making sure I get my steps in, and then maybe one other tiny, really like really little thing, like, oh, I got to send that email or I got to do something else, right? Every now and then I'll do some task, right? Or I'll record a TikTok. Something that's really, really tiny that moves us in those goals. Again, that really gives our brain lots of dopamine, those prediction signals, but also it gives us evidence that we're capable. We
Mm-hmm.
need those that evidence, right? Make sure that when you're starting something, you actually finish it. And if you're repeatedly not finishing it, you need to make that task much, much smaller, almost so small it seems stupid that you wouldn't do it.
Atomic Habits. If you have not read that book, please, please read the book. It speaks to
Yep.
just the smallest things that start to compound.
And then once you do it, I want you to reflect on those wins. One of the most obnoxious things that I do is that when I clean something, be it the fridge, the pantry, the garage, my closet sometimes, my shoe collection, I will go back on it repeatedly throughout the day and I will look at it. I will open the door back at it like, oh my gosh, that looks so amazing, then close it and then do it again. Right. So the part of the reason why that's actually really healthy for us is that when we reflect back on these small wins, we're constantly reinforcing the evidence that we are capable of doing things. We are capable of completing tasks. And then what we've got to do is we've got to work on the consistency behind that. This is the process over the goals. Consistency and the process will outwin your goals every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Not perfection, guys. I am not saying perfection. So there's a difference between saying I made a goal to work out 5 days this week and we hit three. But if those three were more consistent, if you're like, oh, I showed up and then on day four, I didn't go work out, but I did walk outside, great. We're cultivating that
Mm-hmm.
consistency. Also, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Learn from them. Anticipate that they will happen. Not because you're a failure, not because this is evidence, just like the other 20 diets that you've done before, that you will never get this right, but simply as this is figure outable,
Yep. Yep.
right?
I love that. I think normalizing the mistakes, that it's just not a world where it's not going to happen. And I think, just being able to come through knowing and normalizing and like Ann said, anticipating them before you even start.
That's right. And the last point I want to make is stop waiting to feel ready. You're not going to be ready. I,
Amen.
I hear people all the time that like, well, I want to lose 20 pounds before I go to the gym. Why? Go to the gym. Go to the gym. Just go to the gym. There's
Yep.
lots of people there at the gym.
Yep. Oh, I hear it all the time. Yep. I can't do this until this. I can't do life is this and I have this vacation and I have this thing and it's like life is always going to life. There's always going to be the thing that, happens to pop up that you didn't account for that you always plan that not everything goes to plan. And then if you can execute when things aren't perfect, imagine when things are moving along seamlessly,
Yes.
right? Imagine
Yes.
how much easier it's going to feel at that point when you can execute it in a world that feels hard, that feels out of normal, that doesn't feel within routine. It's like when you go to get yourself in quote unquote back in routine, it's gonna be smooth sailing is what it's gonna be. And we don't, but like Anne said, we're wired to only want it when conditions are perfect. But again, I believe that's a coping and a protection mechanism to say, basically like, oh, well, this is perfect. And we know deep down inside it's never going to be the perfect situation. It's just never going to be. But it's a really easy way to say, oh, well, when this thing happens, then I'll do this because it's your scapegoat. And it's a way
That's
for you
right.
to normalize that.
That's right. And I have seen people get to the gym 4 days a week, 5 days a week, and where we started was literally putting on their tennis shoes and going outside and walking around their house.
Yeah.
That's where we started.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So
100%.
teeny tiny, again, almost seems so silly to be stupid. But hey, go outside, walk around your house. We're going to do that 3 days this week. And they're like, what's that going to do? It's going to work on the consistency. We're working on developing the process.
Yeah.
Okay. So here are questions to ask yourself in terms of creating this pattern for yourself. First, what difficult thing did I do today? Second, what evidence did I give my brain today? Did I stay
Mm.
comfortable? Did I do something hard? Right. Third, what challenge became easier because I practiced it today?
I love that. I love that. It's just as if when you start strength training, the 15-pound dumbbells that were hard become your 15-pound warm up when you practice it and you build that strength enough and you put enough repetition in.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Fourth, what promise did I keep to myself this week? And just as a side note, if you're making the promise of, I promise not to eat chocolate all week, that may not be a great place to start. I promise not to eat chocolate on Monday. That might be the greatest place to
Sorry.
start.
That is a really great way to break it down, though, too, right? Like just very, very I think again, not think, I know for a fact we do the extreme. Like it's like, well, I'm cutting all of this out. It's like, well, why don't we say instead of I can never have, I'm giving myself 2 days a week where I can have chocolate. Let's start
That's
there and
right.
saying I'm never having chocolate again. Well, I am having chocolate on Wednesday and Sunday, whatever it is, right? Like give yourself like, but I think breaking it down into those micro commitments are just, again, it's actually at that point becomes something you can stay consistent with instead of throwing, I always say, the baby out with the bathwater.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And every small act of courage updates your brain's expectations and proves something about who you are to your brain.
Mm.
That
Mm.
is so important and so much about what we're talking about to cultivate confidence, to cultivate self efficacy. All right. So, just to kind of wrap this up, confidence is not fearlessness. Matter of fact, a lot of times we are scared of doing the hard thing. It is not positive thinking. Stop doing that. It is not a personality trait. It is not simply having high self esteem. Confidence is your brain's conclusion after repeatedly observing that you have done hard things, that you've shown up, you've adapted, you've persevered, you've recovered, you've kept your word, and you keep showing up and doing those things. That's where we get the confidence from.
Amen, sister. Amen. I don't even know if I have anything to add to that because I just think that it just ties everything together with a pretty pink bow. At the end of the day, action, action,
Mm-hmm.
action drives success. That's what this all comes down to.
Well, I think that you are, Nicole, you are living proof of how action has created confidence. Like all the things that you have
Oh, for
done
sure.
from the start of your journey to now, repeated exposures, hard stuff. I mean, I know that there have been conversations that have been earth-shattering for you,
Mm-hmm.
and you keep showing up and doing the hard.
Yep. I guess, something I continue to ask myself is always like, well, what's the other option?
Yep.
And I love when I have these, like, it's like, I mean, I guess we bring it back to business, right? And if anybody owns a business, you understand everybody has moments. And I'm sure you've had the same of like, it's all going down. I'm closing
Oh
doors.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You
I don't
have
even
those
know if I want
moments.
to do this anymore. Yeah.
But it's just like, okay, well, what's the other option then? Right? Like it's like almost it's like you get to a place it's just quitting just isn't an option. It's just
Hmm.
not. And when you break it down into, if we take this back to your health and fitness journey, because that's why most people listen to this podcast, it's like, well, what's the option? It's hard. I hear you. I'm challenging you. I hear you. It sucks in the moment. I hear you. But what's the other option? Going back to the place that you were miserable with to begin? Like, what is that option?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that could be, but ultimately you started this for a reason. So, sure, I mean, you could go back to that thing, but chances are when you really boil it down, you do not want that. You do not want that. And so, again, it comes down to what's the other option, and everything is figure outable.
I love that phrase.
All right, I think this has been, I mean, we're getting a little long on this one, but there's just so much to cover, and I just think that we definitely, a lot of deep thoughts here in conversation. But if you guys have any feedback on this podcast, if likes, comments, shares, interaction, I mean, that really truly means more to us than absolutely anything.
Yes.
Save it, share it, tag us, send it to somebody who I know that this hit home hard for you, that for a fact would hit home for as well. And spread the love, spread the love. And we will absolutely see you guys in the next episode. Ciao.
If this is helpful, give me a like, follow me, or subscribe for more.